I covered this mouse around when this channel first started, about 6 years ago. And back then, I said it was the perfect gaming mouse. A lot has changed in 6 years, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. The new release from Razer being the RAZER Deathadder V4 Pro. I am an ergo main, so hopefully what I share with you today will really be able to resonate and help you decide, is the RAZER Deathadder V4 Pro a mouse you should pick up? Now, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of measurements of the mouse, as it is still the exact same size, but I do want to give you the measurement of my hand, so whenever I'm talking about, again, how I grip it, big, small, whatever, you can relate to my hand size to your hand size. But as far as core measurements from the V4 to the V3, they are a spitting image, the exact same. But I do want to share the heat signature grip points with you guys, so again, you can kind of get an idea on where this mouse sits in the hand and how it feels. So anyways, let me go and get my hand heat transferred over onto the mouse, get into my grip point, and again, you're going to see the heat transfer onto the mouse here, and you can just see right there, like, this is a big mouse. So there's my thumb right back here in the side of my palm, and it's rolling up to the top and around. I'm not hitting in the back right back there, but my entire palm is on us. Like, look at this, palm to fingers rolling all the way around pretty much. If I try to fingertip this, it still hits me in the back right back there. So again, this is pretty much primarily a palm grip mouse, or again, even relaxed if you don't put it all the way into the back of your palm, but it truly engulfs your hand. This is a big ergo mouse. But again, I don't want to sit here and harp about the shape and dimensions of this mouse too much, as you all already know what it is. It's the exact same size as the V3, so I don't want to waste your time on that. I will chime in about the shape and feel in the hand later on when I talk about some comparisons with myself using it compared up to some other ergo mice and some other mice out there, you know. So I'll talk about that, but again, I just don't want to waste your time with stuff you already know. Let's go and take a look at the stuff that's different on the V4 Pro. So on that note, let's go and take a look over this mouse, talk about what's changed, the improvements, and what is different. And I want to start on the bottom, as now you can see you have big feet on the top and the bottom, where on the previous one, you got the little smiley face, little foot on the bottom and two up there. I mentioned this in my original videos, like, why do that when you got the space right here? And on a big ergo mouse, why you want this is just going to get a lot more balance and a lot more control with a big mouse. A small mouse, you're flicking and dipping, dancing and all around. But again, with something bigger, with a bigger foot right there, you're going to have really balanced, smooth control across the board. It's kind of similar to what you see on the Deathadder V3 Pro. And I like how they did that here because, again, it is a little bit of a bigger mouse. It's tried and true what we've seen on Zowie mice. Again, I rave about this in all of my mice videos. Really nice to see that on the Deathadder now. Now, more importantly, coming over to the side of this mouse, the side buttons, right? You can probably spot the difference right here. You have that little separation. You have that little gap there. Now, the previous side buttons were pretty darn good. They were real big, so you could fairly decipher one to the other. But now with these, you got that gap in there, and there's no mistaking them. I absolutely love it. Every mouse should have a gap in between right there. Really nice. But more importantly, what I think is even better about this is the build. The build feels a lot better. On the standard Deathadder, I can press in right here. You got a little bit of give. The previous, like the first batch of the V3s, they had a lot of give, especially over time. But now with the newer batch here, they got better, but you still have some give. Coming over here onto the new V4, I mean, it's solid. It does not budge one bit whatsoever. So two bonuses right there, the little space, and then again, the structural integrity as well. Now, another difference is the scroll wheel. You now have an optical scroll wheel here, which they're saying the lifespan will be longer, no defects, so on and so forth. As far as feel one to the other, I would say this one feels a little bit more tactile, but I don't know, that's very mild. I've used the V3 a whole lot more than the V4. I've only been using this one for maybe about maybe 2-3 weeks now. So again, it's still fairly fresh, but again, you do have an optical scroll wheel. Now, they also changed the switches in the Deathadder V4 Pro here. They're using the Gen 4 opticals over here. This is the V3 Pro. So let's get a sound difference of both of them real quick. So after listening to the buttons compared to the V4 to the V3, hopefully it picked up in the microphone, but there is a significant difference between both of these. I mean, the V3, even in my previous review, like I stated, these things are incredibly crispy. I'm not a big optical switch fan. It's really not my thing because a lot of them are a little bit heavier and then again, just louder and crispier. And you even get that with the V3 here. But coming over to the V4, it's amplified. Like it really is. Like these things are incredibly crispy. Like when you come over to like a traditional type switch, you just got that quiet kind of just traditional click that we're all used to. That's honestly what I like. These, I don't want to say they're heavy. It's kind of messes with your mind, right? Because they're incredibly crispy. You definitely hear them. But again, you do notice the tension compared to a traditional switch. But as far as pressing the buttons down, you kind of have your click and then that little bit of give right there. But I'm talking, you don't even notice that because like I'm usually pressing right up here by the scroll wheel. I'm never up towards the front of the mouse. I mean, if you're engulfing this and pressing towards the front, you got a big hand. I already have a big hand. And again, I usually press right here by the scroll wheel and right there, bam, you press down and that's pretty much all you have. Like these things are incredibly crispy. That goes right with the side buttons here. Oh my gosh, you press these, bam, and you're right down to business. Comparing it to the V3, like these are so big and kind of long, if you press them towards the end or the front up here, you feel that little bit of give. It like goes into the shell right there. I know the camera can't pick it up, but if you use this mouse, you know what I'm talking about. Over here, no matter where you press them, it's just like snappy right to the point. So I really love what they did with the buttons here. Hopefully these break in a little bit over time, but I'm gonna tell you what, out of the box, whoo, these are some of the crispiest ones I've ever felt. Now, another thing that's changed with the new Deathadder V4 is the weight. And you might be thinking, okay, it's gonna be a little bit heavier. You got the bigger feet down there, you got updated buttons and such. They made the build a little bit better, but watch this here. So this is the V3. We're gonna put it on a scale. We're coming in at 62.1 grams. Let's get that off. Now with the V4, we're coming in at 56.2 grams. Like that is so cool to see. Again, I'm not a weight junkie by any means. I don't need all of my mice to be 30 grams or whatever, you know, but with a big ergo mouse, seeing how they took this, improved it and made it lighter still, it's just like trickery. It's total magic, you know? Now, talking one to the other, do you feel the difference? I mean, it is mild. It is very minute, but again, it's really cool to see the improvements and still the weight reduction. But now, one of my favorite changes to the Deathadder is this little thing right here. This is your dongle. And my favorite thing is not so much that it's just a little dome, but the really cool thing is you have multiple lights on the front right now, which you can program to display different things. I usually leave mine as battery life and then connection status, but you can do DPI and polling rate. Me, I leave my DPI and polling rate the same, so I don't really bother with that, but I love having a battery life and my connection status there. But more importantly is the weight of this dongle. They actually have weights in it. Like how many of us have dongles that just slide off our desk and they're behind our desk? This thing is not going to budge. It has some serious heft to it. And I just want to show you this to reiterate my point here. Again, some of you might be thinking like, whatever, this is cheesy, but no, trust me, it is definitely an improvement. So I'm going to show you the traditional, the standard AK dongle to the new one, the world's first dongle weight test here, right? We usually test the weight of our mice, but this is, again, so stinking awesome. So here we go. The AK dongle, we're coming in at 12.5. This is the classic standard one. Now with the new V4 dongle, we are coming in at 44.6 grams. Like, holy smokes, the dongle almost weighs as much as the mouse. And again, that's so cool because it's not going to slide and fall off your desk. I know some of you out there might be like, yo, this is totally ridiculous. Like, who cares about the dongle, right? Now, I'm showing you the weight and then again, some of the features packed onto it, which I absolutely love. Again, I test so many different products and seeing improvements like this really make me nerd out. Like, seriously, this is awesome. But there's still a lot of tech packed into this dongle and also the mouse as well, which we will get to, but there's one other improvement or difference I want to show you on the new V4, and that is the coating. The coating on all the Deathadders now will have that soft touch, kind of matte feel that we're used to on the white Viper. You kind of got that soft touch feel, and then on the newer, they used to describe this as, I don't know, the soft coating or whatever Deathadder on there. They did it on some of the later releases of the V3. That is what all the Deathadders will have right now, and let time and tell you what, this coating is awesome. It really is grippy. Now inside your box, you do get some grips if you need those as well, but trust me, the coating on this mouse is phenomenal. I mean, it feels so good and it is incredibly grippy, even for a hot, humid climate like I'm in down south here. So now let's go and talk about some of the specs and internals, the tech upgrades on the V4 Pro. And I'm gonna be quoting some of this straight from RAZER here. I'll throw some slides up for you guys so you can see, as I don't have anything to test latency or anything like that. What I like talking about when it comes to spec and tech is, again, my time using it. What do I notice difference from the previous to the new version, or X to, again, Y mouse or something like that. So I will talk about that in the performance after this, but I just want to show you and mention some of the tech improvements of this mouse. And number one is the Hyperspeed Wireless Gen 2. They're stating your latency is significantly lower. Again, latency in my situation, I don't really ever notice any difference. Again, telling one to the other, you really can't tell anything. This is just really just numbers, you know? And then they got the hyper polling technology, talking about from the dongle to the mouse with the 8K polling, which goes right in line with that dongle. The antenna's actually raised up higher so to get a more steady signal right there. Now, I already mentioned the optical scroll wheel, and again, as far as feel, I'm gonna say pretty darn similar to the original one. This mouse is newer, so it feels maybe a little bit more tactile, but that'll probably break in over time. Now, they do have the Focus Pro 45K optical sensor Gen 2, which the cool thing about when you kind of sum some of this up and pile it all together, you're gonna save some battery life, and you got a lot of battery life with this mouse. It goes up to 150 hours at 1,000 polling rate. Now, when you dump it down to 8,000 polling rate, you're gonna get 22 hours. I leave mine at 4,000 polling rate and haven't had any battery issues whatsoever. And then, of course, as I already mentioned and let you listen to, the Gen 4 optical switches. What they're stating here, the biggest thing I want to take away from this is they're talking 12% lighter actuation force. I don't know if I could say they're lighter. If anything, I would say they feel very similar to the V3, but they are significantly louder. Again, that just could mean they're newer or whatever, but again, they are some of the crispier switches out there for sure. But anyways, let's go and take a look at some gameplay and talk about my time actually using this mouse. And this is where I'll talk about, again, comparing it to some other mice. So as far as my actual time using the Deathadder V4 Pro and the performance of the mouse, let me tell you what, just straight up raw performance, again, 4,000 polling rate, talking battery life, talking about me testing new wireless headsets and swapping and changing all sorts of stuff out, you know what I mean? Never one stutter, never one hiccup, delay, anything. As far as any of the button presses, the sensor performance, the scroll wheel, everything was absolutely solid. Now, that goes right in line with the V3 Pro. I never had any issues with that. The only issue that I had with the V3 Pro, again, was with that build. Over time, I would start noticing a very mild amount of flex. Now, I'm a firmer gripper, especially with a bigger mouse, so maybe that's just with me, you know? This one feels incredibly solid. Over months' times of use, again, how will that fare? I'll chime back with you and let you guys know, but right now I can tell you, and I think that really comes from that button separation. You got a little bit more shell integrity right there. It feels incredibly solid. I can't get the thing to flex. And as far as my gameplay using it, so performance, absolutely solid. But chime in more about the shape. I play a lot of Splitgate 2 right now. Like, holy smokes, am I hooked on that game. It's just an absolute blast. And using the Deathadder V4 Pro, as I mentioned when I showed you the heat signatures, this is a big ergo mouse. Like, there's no denying. It is one of the bigger ones out there, you know? Y'all know I use the Zowie EC2, is that right? Let me get it right here real quick. Yes, it is the EC2DW. It's their newest one out there. That's been my main for so long. I absolutely love that mouse. And switching one to the other here, that's what I noticed. Again, with the Deathadder, it's definitely would hold my shots more. Say if you're sniping or you're playing a little slower pace, that's where that Deathadder really comes into play and really shines. But me playing Splitgate, I play a little bit faster. It's the same when I play a lot of Call of Duty, which I really don't play too much anymore, you know, but I play faster. I don't just sit back, you know. And when I went to the Zowie, I can just dance around a little bit more. Because as I mentioned with the Deathadder, even if I try to kind of like fingertip it up and kind of flick and dip a little bit, it's still going to hit me in the side of my palm here. And I have a bigger hand. So if you have a smaller hand than me, this mouse is always going to be, and you're going to notice yourself moving with your arm a little bit more. Hopefully that makes sense. When I personally go to the EC2, again, I can dance it around and get some of those flicks a little bit more, you know? So I think the biggest difference here, and this is, again, the exact same with the V3, and I've mentioned it in previous videos before as well, It's a big mouse, and that's crazy for me to say, right? Because you all know I love big ergo mice. Now for me, again, being faster player, I need something just a pinch smaller, being in the EC2. And I even mentioned this to Razer. This is the one thing I really need to see, is a Deathadder, call it V4, whatever it is, but this Deathadder in a small version. I don't want to go mini, because mini might be too small. You know, we all know everybody's been asking for the Viper Mini. I think a lot of those kids that wanted the little tiny mice to be even tinier, I think a lot of them have grown up. So let's go on and push that Viper Mini away, and let's focus on the Deathadder Mini. But I think they should even go more of the Zowie route. Like, we're going to call this the large. This is the large Deathadder. Let's get a mini Deathadder, and then let's get a Deathadder large right here, okay? Deathadder medium, and then Deathadder small. Going straight up Zowie type of quality or style right there, right? Where you got multiple different sizes. That's what Razer needs to do with the Deathadder, because this could be the 1-2 punch for sure. Like, I'd have this one when I'm playing story games or working, and then I'd have that Deathadder medium for whenever I'm FPS playing. Any of you guys that want something smaller, then you'll have the mini version there. And let me tell you what, game over, this would be a mouse on everybody's desk. But right now, with this being really big, again, I think it's still just kind of secluded to bigger handed players or dedicated palm grippers. I really hope Razer builds on this platform and again gets us those different sizes. Let's forget about that Viper Mini. Let's focus on the Deathadder and get a medium and a small on this mouse. Oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. Now, the new Razer Deathadder V4 Pro is coming in at $170. That is a $10 increase from the V3 Pro with 8K dongle that came in at $160. So $10 difference, and in my honest opinion here, no fluff, I think it's totally worth it. Do we call that inflation or tariffs or whatever the heck political thing you want to call it these days? I just think the $10 increase is totally justifiable. Heck, the dongle alone is awesome, but there's so much more we can go. The feet on the bottom, right? The simple things are what I like, you know? I think it's totally worth it. This mouse is awesome. Definitely one of my favorites since 6 years ago, and still to this day. This one will stay on my desk, but as I mentioned before, not to continue harping on that, Razer, please, please, please build on this platform, since this is like a large. Give us that medium. Give us that small or mini, whatever you want to call it. And if you guys want to see it as well, let us know down in the comments, because trust me, Razer will read the comments. And if you guys ask for it as well and they see it, we might be able to see that happen. And I think that would be so awesome. So chime in down in the comments. Let them know you also want to see that medium and that small Deathadder. But as it is, sits right now, this is what we have. And yes, I love it.